David Cameron's paid an unannounced visit to British troops in southern Afghanistan today. The Prime Minister's flying visit took in Camp Bastion, Lashkar and forward operating base Shawkat. He spoke to BFBS about new equipment, morale and the growing threat of so-called green-on-blue attacks, and announced new payment safeguards for troops severely injured on operations. Our reporter James Hurst has been travelling with the Prime Minister's party.
Arriving at Camp Bastion, David Cameron was greeted by the ISAF Deputy Commander, the UK National Component Commander, Lieutenant General Adrian Bradshaw. The Prime Minister touched down later than planned, after experiencing something known to many troops here, an aircraft going unserviceable. Downing Street says he makes these visits to talk to troops personally. Today he also got hands-on with the newest protected vehicle, just arrived in theatre, Foxhound. But Mr Cameron knows he's also here at a difficult time for the British forces. Late notice deployments to the Olympics, thousands already made redundant, and just 2 weeks since further cuts to the army were detailed.
As for the issue of morale, I am absolutely full of support for our armed services and what they do. And yes, we do ask them to do a lot on our behalf. But I think it's in everybody's interest that we have a defence budget that really adds up, and we do now. And that's why we're able to invest in bits of kit like that Foxhound behind me. We've now got the best protected vehicles for our armed services that we've ever had in our history.
Mr Cameron has just 2.5 years left to meet his target of bringing British combat troops home by the end of 2014. So after a short helicopter ride to Lashkar, the Prime Minister met senior figures from the police, Afghan army and Governor's office in Helmand to help plan that handover, with the drawdown timetable still undecided. From there, this flying visit took David Cameron to an area already in transition, Nadi Ali. At forward operating base Shawkat, he met members of One Royal Anglian, perhaps his best chance to get first-hand accounts of frontline soldiering in Helmand. It's only his second such visit to a forward base as Prime Minister, after disruption to 3 of his earlier trips. Not all of the Prime Minister's visit has been conducted in front of the cameras. In private earlier, he met injured servicemen and women at the Royal 3 Bastion Hospital. And while here, he's announced a new payment scheme for the most seriously injured veterans. It means that when disability living allowance is replaced across the board, they will not have to undergo multiple medical assessments to get their money. And it should guarantee that their payments do not fall. How heavily does the toll of seriously injured troops weigh on you when you make decisions about what happens next with British forces in Afghanistan?
Oh, it weighs incredibly heavily. I think every day of the decision that we make as a country to put our troops in harm's way, I ask myself all the time, have we got the right numbers? Are we doing things in the right way? And also, how will we look after those people that get injured, and how will we look after the families of those who lose loved ones? It's the biggest responsibility as Prime Minister. What we've announced in terms of the military covenant, now written into law, is that when it comes to disabilities, we're reforming disability benefits in the UK, but we're going to have a special regime for our armed services to make sure they get the very best.
The biggest concern for many serving here, and also for many families, is what seems to have been a spike in attacks, killings by Afghan service members. How concerned are you that as the balance of Afghans rises and British falls, that could become more of a problem?
I'm obviously concerned about it because, the future for this country is the Afghan National Army and Afghan National Police being responsible for security. I think the handover to Afghan transition and control is going well. I've seen that for myself on the ground. Of course, there have been some absolutely dreadful incidents. We have to learn from those and make sure that we really do screen and check Afghan police and Afghan army units. I'm confident that is now happening. We need to make sure that everything that can be done is done. But let's be clear, the route for our troops to come home and the future security of this country lies in the hands of the Afghan army, police and local police. It's in our interest to train them up and make sure they can do the job, and I'm confident that they can.
But one big question remains unanswered. When will the drawdown of British troops begin in earnest? Mr Cameron will only say that after 500 return this year, others will come home steadily to strike a balance between supporting Afghan forces and letting them stand on their own feet. James Hurst, Forces News, Camp Bastion.